Hi. Today we're going to solve for equations. We're going to solve equations for y, and we're going to put them in slope-intercept form. We know this is slope-intercept form. We know this, the m is the slope, and we know that b is the y-intercept. So let's take a look at this first one. We want to get y by itself, and we want to get positive y by itself. So we have a y here, but there's something else happening to y that we have to get rid of. We have to cancel. So if you set up your little chart here when we used to solve equations, the variable we want to solve for is y. Now what's happening to y? You're adding x to it. So put your adding x. That's it. That's the only thing that's happening. How are we going to undo that? We're going to subtract x from both sides. And that's what we'll do. Subtract x, so x minus x, 0. On the left side of the equation of the equal sign, we just have y. Perfect, we're getting close. But since we subtracted x here, we also have to subtract x here. Now if you're trying to put it in slope-intercept form, we want the x's, then we want the y-intercept. And now we have a minus x, and then a minus 3. So here's our equation. We got y by itself. That's the slope-intercept form. Now we have to identify what is the slope. And in this case, we have a negative 1, which is down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. And for the y-intercept, the b value, it's negative 3. So we've taken this, we've transformed it into slope-intercept form, and we've identified the slope and the y-intercept. Perfect. On the next one, same thing. We have 3x plus y equals 6. Y is not by itself. So what we need to do is try and get y by itself. So what's happening to y? Well, you're adding 3x to it. Nothing else happened to y. So now let's undo that. Let's subtract 3x from both sides. So minus 3x, minus 3x. 3x minus 3x, 0. We have positive y by itself. It's a beautiful thing. So these are not like terms. We have a 6 and we have a negative 3x. If you can see it as a positive 6 and a negative 3x as two separate terms, it might be a little bit more helpful. So I'm going to take my minus 3x, which is going to be my slope, and my positive 6, which is going to be my y-intercept. And there it is. So your slope is negative 3, and then your y-intercept is 6. Now you can graph that. All right, take a look at number 3. If you haven't already, maybe we can pause the video here and try and solve for number 3. But I'm going to take you through it because these kind of coincide with the problems you're going to be working on today. Switch over the side. So we have a negative y here, we have a negative 1/2 x, we have a positive 5. How are we going to get this so y is by itself? Well, what is happening to y? Let's see. What is happening to y in this case? We've got a few things. And how are we going to undo it? First, y is right here. It's being multiplied by negative 1. Right? There's a negative 1 right there. So it's being multiplied by negative 1. And then you're subtracting 1/2 x. Subtracting 1/2 x. So let's we can take care of this first. And we can add a 1/2 x to both sides. So I'll add 1/2 x. And I'll add 1/2 x. So now we have a negative y equals, I'm going to put the x's first, and then my number. And the last thing would be to, instead of multiplying by negative 1/2, divide by negative 1/2. And then divide by negative 1. Sorry, not negative 1/2, negative 1. Those would cancel. This divided by negative 1 would just switch signs. 5 divided by negative 1 would just switch signs as well. So that's one option. The other option for that one, if you think that's a little confusing or a little too much, take it easy. Take it easy. Since the y is negative, we could just add y to both sides. And then we have negative 1/2 x equals 5 plus y. And now to get positive y by itself, just get rid of the 5. Subtract 5. So those would cancel. Y is by itself. So here's your y by itself. We have our slope, right? Our slope is right here. There. And our y-intercept right here. Slope is down 1/2, and the y-intercept is negative 5. Okay. A couple more examples. And just scoot on over here. Okay, we want to get y by itself right here. So how are we going to undo that? Well, first thing is, it's being multiplied by 4. Then he's subtracting 3x. If you set up these charts, they're very helpful because they tell you what's happening to the variable that you're trying to solve for. In this case, it's always going to be y. So we're going to add 3x first. So I'll get rid of this. Let's add 3x. That's 0. Let's add 3x. So we have our 4y equals, I'm going to put the x's first because we're going in slope-intercept form. So x marks the spot. It's got to go first. And then finally, the opposite of multiplying by 4 is dividing by 4. So divide every single thing by 4. Spread the love. Everyone gets a piece of it. Spread it. 4, 4, 4. Can't just divide this by 4. The fact that you have a fraction is good. We want slope to be a fraction. So 4 divided by 4 is just 1y. Awesome. We have 3/4 x, so the slope would be up 3 over 4, up 3 over 4. And then 8 divided by 4, 2. Now you can graph it. Your slope is up 3 over 4, and your y-intercept, 2. Okay, we want fractions for slope. No decimals. All right, the last two. We have our y here, and again, but this y is negative. So I think it's easier if you take that and move it to the other side first. Let's get y positive. We're all positive people here. So I'm going to do that first. I want y to be positive. Okay, so on the left side we have our 3x. On the right side we have our 2 plus 1/2 y. So now what's happening to y? Looks like we're multiplying by 1/2 and adding 2. So for our y, we're multiplying by 1/2, and then we're going to add 2. So let's undo that. Let's get rid of the 2. 3x minus 2, they're not like terms, we can't combine them. 3x minus 2. So those are done, but we still have our 1/2 y. So we subtracted 2, good. The opposite of multiplying by 1/2 is dividing by 1/2, but we don't divide fractions. We actually multiply by the reciprocal, or some people in 7th grade call it keep, change, flip. So we're going to multiply by 2, because that's the reciprocal. So now I'm going to multiply everything by 2. Multiply this by 2 over 1, cancels. We get y by itself, very exciting. We have to multiply this by 2. We have to multiply this by 2. Okay? It's like trick-or-treating. Spread that candy, give it to everyone. Everyone gets a piece. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. 2 times 3 would be 6x. And here you go. There's the slope. There's the y-intercept. You want to rewrite it? So y is on the left side. Slope. Y-intercept. You can easily graph it. Last but not least, number 6. Good part about this is you can stop the video, you can go back, because there are similar ones you guys are going to be working on today. We have y, we have x, negative x, we have 5. We got to get y by itself. Good news is y is positive. Okay? So now we can set up our little chart and figure out how we're going to undo this to get y by itself. So y is first being multiplied by 3. So multiplied by 3. And then you're subtracting x. How are we going to undo that? How can we undo that? Well, the opposite of minus x is plus x. So that's a good starting point. I'll add x. That's 0. I'll add x. And my 3y equals, instead of putting 5 plus x, you know it's going to be in slope-intercept form. So put x plus 5. Flip-flop it. We're almost there. We have y equals mx plus b. Almost. Got to get rid of this guy. The opposite of multiplying by 3, divide both sides by 3. So remember, he gets divided by 3. You get divided by 3. You get divided by 3. Everyone gets divided by 3. Here's our y equals, there's a number there, but I just can't see it, but I know it's there, but it's not, but it should be. Why don't we just put it there? There's a 1, right? There's our slope. Up 1 over 3. Up 1 over 3. And finally, 5/3. Good thing we're not graphing this one. That's it. We were told to put it in slope-intercept form. It's in slope-intercept form. We have our slope. We have our y-intercept. It's just not an even number. Okay? Hopefully this helps you with solving for y. Put them in slope-intercept form.